Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session, ERE data in Filevine automatically. This session is part of Chronicle's Advancing Technology in Disability Law series, where we spotlight tools, workflows, and integrations that are helping disability firms modernize how they work. As a heads up, in case it's your first time in one of these virtual events, you will receive a full replay right after today's event. So you don't need to worry about missing anything. We'll have detailed notes and takeaways from everything we present today in case you need to review anything, as well as the recording. We'll also be taking questions throughout in the chat box. And so if you have any questions, feel free to include 2 hashtags in front of that question to make it stand out. And if you are just joining us, feel free to drop into the chat where you're joining in from. And before we jump in, I'm going to go ahead and go over some key takeaways from today's session, as well as a quick round of introductions before I pass it over to Nikhil to explain why we built this, as well as to demo the Filevine integration. So by the end of this session, you are going to learn how Chronicle's native Filevine integration eliminates a lot of the manual ERE data entry that you might be doing right now. You're also going to learn how to set up authentication, field mapping, and phase mapping, as well as what it looks like when you have ERE data flowing into your Filevine projects automatically. And then last and most importantly, how to get started. We'll include some details as to how to get started by yourself, as well as if you want a free white glove setup session, assuming that you're a Chronicle Pro customer with us now. With that, as a quick heads up, we will have a feedback form at the end of this respective workshop. If you're looking for a downloadable guide to how to set up your CMS and integrate it with what we're going to show you today, or in the chance where you're just curious and you may not use Filevine, but you use another one right now, we have a downloadable when you submit the feedback for today's session. And we'll set a reminder for this at the end of today's session as well. As a quick introduction from me, I'm Will. I focus on building education, partnerships, and collaborations that help disability practices adopt better tools and stronger operational standards. And we're also joined today by Nikhil, the founder of Chronicle. Chronicle is the platform that's helping Social Security disability firms automate their ERE monitoring, case tracking, as well as document workflows. Chronicle now monitors over 177,000 cases and 7.5 million SSA documents across 2,100 disability professionals. To get us kicked off today, Nikhil is going to talk a little bit more about why we built this integration, and then we'll hop right into a live demo. So Nikhil, feel free to take it away.
Great. Well, great to be chatting with y'all. I'm excited to be launching this today and showing everyone. I know for quite a few folks here, we've been talking about building a native integration with Filevine for quite a while, and so that day has come. So the problem we're really trying to solve, right, is in SSA, especially you have many cases running, whether it's 20 to thousands, a lot of data is changing all the time, whether it is the hearing date or the status of the case or the DLI and the AOD or new documents coming in. A lot of that moves very quickly. It's all in the ERE and it's hard to keep track of. For a lot of firms, you have your case management system, that's your system of record, that's where you're doing all your work and tracking it, but it's disconnected from that ERE data, right? The ERE data lives outside of Filevine. And so what a law staff has to end up doing is mainly doing data entry. If you have Filevine set up to generate tasks on certain statuses or when certain things are true, that means it only happens when your team mainly changes the project phase in Filevine or entered some data field into Filevine, then your automations run. And so this lets Filevine fall behind reality, right? This means often you are, unless someone remembers to make that update, you actually don't know what you need to do next. And that makes you miss deadlines or fall behind and scramble at the last minute. So that's the problem we're really trying to solve is this manual data entry problem. And so what we built here today is a native integration. So that way, all that data that's in the ERE that's currently being captured by Chronicle, constantly updated in a Chronicle dashboard, can also flow into your Filevine project. That way, you are no longer doing that manual data entry. That daily, we at Chronicle check the ERE every 2 hours for new statuses and every day for new documents. All that can push automatically into Filevine. So that way, your automations run, your data's up to date, and you're no longer left behind trying to scramble, being like, oh, I forgot to make that change today, and now we're already behind the appeals deadline. So Chronicle really is, pushing that data into Filevine for you. So super easy to get set up, and I'll be walking you through this. There's 4 simple steps. One is connect and authenticate. Make sure that, we have access to your Filevine account. Configure the data sync, and I'll walk you through the different kind of data you can sync into Filevine and how you can match and map and decide what goes where. And then finally is you start the sync, so that way we can start actually updating those cases for you. All right. So with that being said, let me share my screen and do my demo. Where is the share button? There we are. All right. Everyone is able to see my screen? Cool. Alrighty. So just to follow, level set, right? We have our Filevine account, right? Your standard Filevine account with all your contacts and all your projects. And then you have your Chronicle dashboard with all of your cases and all of this information from the ERE. And so the question is, how do you connect those two? Step 1 will be authentication. So actually connecting your Chronicle account to your Filevine account. So we will have this in the guide afterwards, and we'll send out a recording. It is a multiple step process with Filevine. So the key place you need to go in Chronicle is settings. Let me actually zoom in. Settings here, integrations, and then Filevine. That will be where the integration lives. That's where you can see all the things going on. Now, in order to actually get it set up on Filevine side, there's a multi-step process. First, you have to actually enable the integration. We are an official Filevine integration, so you'll find us on their marketplace. You're going to set advanced integrations, and then you'll search for Chronicle. And right there, their Chronicle integration comes up, and you'll just click activate, and that will activate the Chronicle integration. So that's step 1, going into the integration section, finding Chronicle, activating it. Step 2 is you have to set up a service account for Chronicle. This is the Chronicle user that will be doing all of the actions in Filevine for you. So once again, you'll be in under settings, this hamburger menu, then advanced. You will go into service accounts right here, and then you'll have to search for your org. It probably will come up by default. And then you will click new. You will select Chronicle as a service account, and then you will give it all permissions and click create. I already have that set up, but you'll see here I have my Chronicle service account already there. So once again, you'll go into service accounts, you'll choose the org, you'll click new, you'll make sure you create it as a Chronicle. It will be in this drop-down menu. You'll give it a unique name, and you'll hit create. So now the service account is created. Then the last step is you need to create a personal access token for that service account. So here you'll click up here into your little initials and user settings and go to manage my account. Again, just as I repeat that, you'll go up here and you'll click manage my account. And then you'll go into access tokens. You'll click new. You'll create a name for it, and you want to call it Chronicle. And then I will select that service account I just created. So Chronicle at Filevine service accounts. So that gives, you're creating a token now for Chronicle as a user, and you'll give it Filevine API access, webhook access, and bulk data API access. So those are the 3 we need to work, and you'll click create. I already have one, so it's not going to let me do it. So let me actually just revoke this one first so I can go through the whole process one more time. So I'm going to click new. I'm going to select Chronicle. I'm going to do Filevine API, bulk data, and webhooks, and I'll click create. Then it will generate this personal access token. Just note, you can only see this access token once. So when you create it, it will only let you copy and paste it once. So make sure you copy it, put it somewhere safe, because once I click done, I will never see this access token again. So I'm going to copy it. I'm going to go back into Chronicle settings, and I just need to paste it in here. And then I'll hit save changes, and that will create the authentication with Chronicle. So I know that was a lot. Just a quick reminder as a recap. Step one is going into advanced, going into integrations, and then turning on Chronicle. Step two is creating the service account. So you're going new, adding a Chronicle service account and creating that. And then the last step is creating that personal access token, where I go into access tokens and I create a new one. And that gets me the code that I need to paste into Chronicle. If you've done an integration before, you may have done this before.
And just for their clarification, Nikhil, can you just, in layman's terms, explain the three access levels that they're granting with that personal access token?
Yeah, for sure. So the first one is API access. This is how we interact with the system. It's just the kind of set of protocols of, how I get a contact or a matter. The bulk data API is so that way we can actually use the API but in bulk so we can, be more efficient with API calls. And then the webhook API access lets us know when changes happen in Filevine so that way when a change happens, they tell us via a webhook. That's kind of like a message to us saying, hey, this matter updated. Cool. Alrighty. So with that set up, that's authentication. Then you need to tell us how to actually find and match clients in Filevine. So the way that the matching works in Chronicle to Filevine is we use last name and last four of SSN. Those two things need to match up exactly. So if there's any misspelling of the last name or there's multiple cases, the system will fail to match, and I'll show you what that looks like. But just know last name and last four of SSN is how we match. And so the thing you need to tell us is where you keep the full SSN in Filevine. So for most firms, it's in one of two places. It's either on the contact record or in the project itself. So you can know the contact record, and let me jump back into Filevine, is this kind of set of contacts, and they have a built-in place where you can keep the SSN in Filevine. Oop, sorry, this is all over the place. Where does it go? God, they make it so confusing in Filevine sometimes. Okay. Oh, I have to click here. There it is. All right. So you may have seen this page in Filevine. This is the contact view. They have a built-in SSN field right here. This is a default in every single Filevine contact. Some folks keep it on the contact. Otherwise, some folks will have a project section where they keep the SSN on the project itself. So we're able to address both. And so you have to tell us, should we look at the contact record or should we go to a project section? So for example, here I had it on the SSD info and select SSN. So we can do either, right? You can either pull it from the project or from the contact. And then if you want us to, we can also then take the SSNs and put them into Chronicle. This is how we turn on document monitoring. A lot of you may have been using enabled documents to do this and doing it manually on every case. You can just turn it on automatically to pull out of Filevine and we'll automatically move that SSN in. One thing I also want to note is if you guys are a multidiscipline firm, so you do PI and workers' comp, you may be using project types to delineate the different types of projects between disability or workers' comp, and you will be able to select which project type is the SSD project type. So just know you will have to select a project type. It will default to the first one. Just grab the one that is the one you use for disability cases. Awesome. And so that is the configuration side. I'm actually going to jump down. Once you've saved all of that, you can click Match Clients. The system will then go and look at all clients in Filevine and try to match them with the ERE. You can see here, we already have most of them matched. The thing that can happen is cases can either have multiple matches, meaning there's multiple projects in Filevine, so we can't match them, or there is no match, meaning the last names don't line up exactly. Once again, that is something you'll have to fix in Filevine. We can't actually do any of the matching otherwise on the Chronicle side. So if there's multiple matches or no matches found, you can also export this list and try to fix it. Cool. Awesome. So now going into the actual data syncing and how you choose what goes into those clients we've matched. First, there's phase mappings. So in Filevine, you may know about this dropdown, right? Which is the project phase. Right here, I've set some just kind of basic disability relevant phases. So I have initial recon, hearing, and appeals. This kind of standard levels at the SSA. I can now choose based on the Chronicle status of case. So, what the SSA is saying it is, whether it's closed or it's pending hearing or ready to schedule, all of those. I can have those change the phase in Filevine. So for some good examples here is at the initial level, I want to go to initial when it's an initial open. So as soon as the initial is open, it will move the project automatically to the initial phase in Filevine. Same for recon. I can say, you know what, I actually want recon open to move it to the recon stage. And then for hearing, maybe I only want to go to hearing once it's actually scheduled. So I can do scheduled hearing, and it will only move to the hearing stage when the ERE stage is now scheduled hearing. So you may have multiple phases in Filevine. We will automatically pick up whatever you've configured in Filevine and let you pick and choose which of these phases you want to have trigger those movements. We will only ever move it once. So if you guys, say we move it into hearing and then you move it to appeals, the system won't move it back. So it's kind of safe in the sense it will only make the change once. Awesome. So then the last thing you can configure in terms of data is the field mappings. So on my project, I have my SSD info, so like status of case, DLI, office, or for example, I have a hearing tab with the ALJ in the hearing date. I can choose what Chronicle data, so for example, AOD, DLI, all of this stuff, what it maps to in Filevine. So if I, click and add a mapping, I can say I want the DLI to go into the SSD info section for DLI. Or say I want to have the ALJ populate, ALJ full name, I'll put in the hearing information into the ALJ field and I'll hit save. And this will automatically pipe the data from Chronicle into Filevine. And so just for showing you guys, if I open up Logan here, the data is already synced and I'm able to see some of this data has populated into Filevine. Once again, reducing the amount of manual data entry you need to have. Awesome. Then the last thing I can do is turn on document syncing. And so it's just a quick toggle, turn that on, and this will automatically move the documents from the ERE, so all of these documents down here, into Filevine, into a folder called Chronicle ERE. So if I actually go into Logan, I'll see there's a document section, Chronicle ERE, and I can see the documents starting to populate in here, so that way all the documents from the ERE are backed up to Filevine, which saves on mail scanning and having to, continually update those files. And then if I ever have any questions about what's happening, I can just come down here and I can review all of the sync data and what's been happening in the background. One thing I do want to note is when you turn on the sync for the first time, we will only update new data in. If you want to go back and update all the old data, so, past data into Filevine, you have to click the resync button and and that will resync all of the data back into Filevine that is, set prior. Great. And that is the live demo.
Excellent. So I'm going to go ahead and take back the screen share, and then we're going to run through those steps and then start talking about next steps for folks today. So Nikhil,
Cool.
why don't you summarize what you just went over?
Yeah, so quick summary there. Step one is connecting it. So you will need to create an access token in Filevine. And just a quick reminder, the steps are turn on the integration, create the service account, generate the access token, and then you paste that into Chronicle. And then you configure the matching. So how do we find the SSN in Filevine? Is it on the contact or is it in a project section? Cool. Then we run the client matching. So that way we're able to actually, see who we've been able to match based on last name and last four of SSN. Next slide. And then you can configure a phase mapping or a field mapping. So what phase based on what ERE status of case, how do those map? How does it move automatically based on the ERE status of case changing? And then the field mapping is what data do you put into what field in Filevine? Just as a quick tip on this side, start small, just do a couple phases or a couple fields just to see if it works well. And then you can always increase from there. And then last is enabling the document sync. This, and all syncs should run every 15 minutes, but this will essentially push the data from Chronicle into Filevine, so that way all the documents are there in Filevine in the Chronicle ERE folder. And then lastly, you can review under settings, then integrations in Filevine, a history of all the syncs and what has been happening in the background.
And so before this integration, a lot of folks are probably monitoring the ERE and then manually entering things into Filevine. Now you don't need to do that. And I know there's some questions that may come in terms of in the past, we may have advised you to set up a Zapier instance. And you might be wondering, if you tried Zapier, what are some of those limitations or differences with this native integration? So now that we have this native integration with Filevine, what this allows you to do is it essentially allows you to just authenticate and configure it once, as opposed to having to manage all of these other potential setups and zaps through Zapier in order for this same functionality to exist through a Zapier flow. The other benefit of this is that this is included with your Chronicle Pro subscription. And so if you were to keep using Zapier, you would have to maintain a separate Zapier subscription, which I believe is anywhere from around like $100 a month or so on that side to maintain that in that instance. And so this direct API makes it so there's no need for middleware, where sometimes there's that in the middle step where in the past you would have it speaking to Zapier to then speak to Chronicle. Now it's just going Chronicle to Filevine, which is a more direct connection. So that also means that our team at Chronicle is handling the updates for this integration, as opposed to if you configured it via Zapier, you'd have to reconfigure things if their API ever changes on the Filevine side. We've been fortunate to have some folks testing this out early. I actually think John is in the audience today, so good to see you, John. But John Foss from Fortis Disability shared with us that this field mapping feature has been a game changer, immediately saving our team significant time by eliminating manual data entry. Furthermore, they've really appreciated the updated phase mapping, which enables for a lot of powerful downstream automations, which ensures that their team is staying on track and on target with everything. So again, as a reminder, what's now syncing is ERE case status going into Filevine projects, hearing dates showing up as calendar events, and then ERE documents being accessible in Filevine. If you're wondering how to get started, I'm going to drop in the chat a link in case you and your team would like to schedule a white glove integration setup with us. Pretty much what our team will do is they'll just make sure that you have everything squared away on the first setup. And it's something in which, we like to just double check in case you need anything on that end. If you are, usually handling all these things yourself, you're obviously welcome to just access this as well directly from your Chronicle integrations page. But as a heads up, you will need a Chronicle Pro plan as well as a Filevine subscription with admin access. So there's that link in the chat in case you need it from there. I know we've gotten a couple different questions, and so we're going to start hopping into Q&A from this section. One question that I had in the chat, I believe, was from Christy, which is the phase mapping required? Her process requires phase changes as specific filing steps.
Yeah, great question, Christy. So it is not required. Everything is pick and choose. So you can have a phase mapping, you don't need to. You can have field mapping, you don't need to, or the document sync. So you can turn on what you want. And to, hopefully your point, Christy, is if you do enable the phase mapping, those automations, those processes can run automatically because the ERE will update the phases for you.
Awesome. Sherry asked, do we need to set up the folders in documents in order for that to work?
No, so Chronicle will automatically create a Chronicle ERE folder in Filevine, and upload the individual documents, which is, I believe, Alex's next question.
Excellent. Uh, and Cassidy asked the question, we have ALJs as contacts in Filevine. Will Chronicle still be able to field map that?
Unfortunately not. That's a great question. The field mappings that we are able to actually do are either text fields or date fields. We are not able to do related contacts or pick lists.
Just to clarify on Alex's question, it was asking specifically, is it the entire claim file or individual documents that are?
So it is the entire claim file as individual documents. So it's not the merge packet, it is the actual underlying files.
Joseph asked, if we create a folder in our folder structure called Chronicle ERE, will the documents auto-sync to that folder instead of creating a new one?
Um, I think we will actually pick it up. It has to match exactly if you have it as Chronicle ERE. However, I do recommend you let the system create it automatically just to avoid any duplicate folders.
Kimberly asked if how the notification system works when new documents will be uploaded to Filevine.
So those are still something you will need to enable yourself under Chronicle notifications. We actually have a great session about that, where you can claim a case and turn on those notifications so you know when new documents come in, and just know within 15 minutes those will get uploaded into Filevine.
So Sherry just wanted to confirm there's a folder that all documents will go there on an ongoing basis.
Exactly. It will create a Chronicle ERE folder, and all the documents out of the ERE will go on in there on an ongoing basis. And if you just run a backfill, it will move everything old in.
Awesome. Sherry had also previously asked me that in the past, if folks had wondered about Filevine integrating in the this, native integration, that there might have been a need for Zapier. Does this essentially replace the need for that in the case that you are a Filevine user?
Yes, higher recommend move off of Zapier. You're paying $100 a month for something that this will do better. So definitely make that transition. And I would recommend getting the white glove setup meeting book so that way we can kind of walk through it.
How long does this setup typically take from what you've seen so far?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the actual setup process of getting that personal access token, as you see, takes a couple minutes. You just have to make sure you are a admin on Filevine, and that goes relatively quickly. The area that can take longer and is really dependent on your firm is configuring the phase mapping and the field mapping. This is a lot of new data that's possible to have in Filevine or automations that are possible. So it's up to you guys to make that design choice of what ERE status triggers what phase or what data goes where in the field mapping. And so that can take a while, just kind of dependent on how much thought you all want to put into that process.
Can you sync CEs or info requests right now?
Yeah, so unfortunately, we are not able to sync CEs or info requests at this time, but it's something will come down the line.
Awesome. And then you mentioned in general that there was like a couple, I think there was a backfill in the document backfill section. What is the kind of like your best tip for that in terms of when to use it versus when to go with just like documents going forward?
For the most part, I would say backfill your documents. It's worth having everything from the ERE in there. And that way the files look complete like each client file looks complete in Filevine. So pretty much always backfill.
For this data flow, does it go both ways or is it one directional right now?
Yeah, so it is one directional for the most part, which is Chronicle pushing into Filevine. The one thing that we will sync back out is the SSN. So as you know, Chronicle needs the full SSN to actually monitor documents. And so if you turn on that setting, we will automatically pull out the SSN and put it into Chronicle so we can start looking and tracking those documents in the ERE. Just note, fees apply. That's your $14 per case. And so it will automatically, start adding those clients.
Christy's asking, what's the best way to verify what kind of Chronicle account that you're on?
Yeah, great question. I think if you go into settings and then billing, you can click the view billing button. There's a big blue button at the top, and then that will show you what plan you're on.
Awesome. And in the case where someone's just attending today, they might not be on Filevine, but they want to know what other case management systems Chronicle integrates with. What's the overall approach there, and what's available right now natively versus via Zapier?
Yeah, so in Chronicle, if you go on the sidebar, we have an apps section where you can filter by case management systems, and that will give you some description and information about each.
Awesome. Cassie's got a question here, which is if we set it up to map old cases from Chronicle, will it override anything that they have already typed into Filevine, or will it not map since the field would have already had a pre-existing value? So
Yeah,
example is
so
cases where hearings are scheduled and they already entered hearing info manually.
yes, so it will overwrite if there's new updates. So this is where Chronicle will only update cases going forward. And so if you connect it and they have a new hearing date, we will automatically try to update that in Filevine. And then if you click the resync button, then we will wipe out everything and try to update everything with the current information in Chronicle for every single case into Filevine. So just note, as if you click, integrate now, it will only do changes going forward and it will overwrite data. If you click the resync button, it will change all data going back in time.
Mark's wondering what exactly does it overwrite? So what
So,
information in Filevine is lost?
great question. So, overwriting is dependent on what fields you are mapping. So, for example, say you have an office field and you have it spelled in a specific way, Chronicle will overwrite that with whatever field we have in Chronicle based on what's in the ERE.
Michael asked, so if SSN is automatically flowing from Filevine to Chronicle, that essentially enables the case in Chronicle, correct? Or can Chronicle pull the date of birth from Filevine as well?
Um, it is correct. This does enable the cases in Chronicle automatically. So that is correct. We cannot currently pull the date of birth field out of Filevine. So we only pull the SSN.
Christy asked, if a case has already been brought into Chronicle, is there any additional charge for importing it into Filevine?
Nope. This is the great thing about being on the Pro plan. This is just part of the package. And so there's no additional cost in this sync.
One question that I had during the demo section was you were showing the field mappings. Is there any future plans of suggested field mappings based off of mapping of any of the existing, common cases of categories? Or do you have to
Not at
always
this.
manually select it?
Yeah, at this point, it's always going to be manual selection. There's a lot of different ways and different sections people use for fields. So we're going to let you guys pick and choose.
Excellent.
But the great thing about this kind of integration is you set it up once and you can forget about it, right? You're only ideally going to the field mapping once or twice as you get it up and running.
If folks have any other questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I think we've mostly caught up on this side. So just to recap for everybody, today we walked through Chronicle's native Filevine integration, how it syncs ERE case status, hearings, and documents directly into your Filevine projects. There's no need for Zapier or any extra costs on that side if you're on the Pro plan, and you can configure your field mappings and phase mappings so it matches your workflow. Biggest takeaway is if your firm is using Filevine, your team should definitely not be manually typing in ERE data anymore with this native integration, since Chronicle can handle this sync to your case management system. As a reminder for folks, if you're on a Pro plan, there's that link in the chat where you can set up some time for a white glove setup session in case you just want Nikhil to review your setup with this integration. If you want to do everything yourself as well, there is this setup checklist once you submit feedback from today's workshop. Other than that, we plan to have a couple events in May, so we hope to see you then. And if you are going to Baltimore next week for NOSCR, we'll see you there as well. But I think that covers it.